Throughout history, there have been over 4,400 different players to play in at least one game in the NBA. Now, the average NBA career is only 4 to 5 years, so most guys aren't playing into their late 30s and early 40s. But for the handful of the guys that do, they're usually riding the bench or there for veteran leadership. But what about the guys who had massive games, even in their elder years? Maybe a turn back the clock moment that nobody saw coming? Well, with that being said, here are my top 5 best old man games in NBA history.
Play clock at 5. Score 4 goals. 3! A 2 home run inning and 1.
Kicking it off at number 5, I got Steve Nash. Steve dished out 20 or more assists in a game 8 times in 18 seasons. Sounds about right. The guy is 5th all time in assists. 2-time MVP, even though people say it should have gone to Kobe one of those years. Maybe Shaq. I don't know. Regardless, one night in 2011 versus the Lakers, Nash finished the game with this crazy stat line. Try 19 points, 20 assists, and 5 boards, all at age 37. As a matter of fact, he's the oldest player in NBA history to dish out 20 or more assists. The game went into 3 overtimes, and Nash was able to last out there for 49 minutes. The man turned back the clock and channeled his inner MVP years. At number 4, you know I had to have LeBron on this list. The man who's been defeating Father Time poured in 56 points versus the Warriors 2 seasons ago. LeBron was 37 and change and managed to grab 10 boards in the game as well. It's tied for the 3rd best scoring output in his illustrious career, and it came against the soon-to-be champs. King James was 19 of 31 from the field while also hitting 6 threes.
That's too easy!
Oh, and by the way, just 2 games later, he scored 50 again. At number 3, I've got the GOAT, Michael Jordan. Many were surprised when MJ decided to return to the league in 2001. His airness hadn't played in 4 years, but he was back in action in the blue and white of Washington. And at age 38, he definitely had his moments, but he was definitely not the same MJ. I mean, dominating the league for 13 plus years, makes sense. But that was not the case in a late December game when Jordan turned back the clock. MJ went out and dropped a 51-piece versus Charlotte Hornets. He shot 21 of 38 from the field, and there was absolutely nothing a young Baron Davis could do about it. You gotta give Baron Davis kudos, you gotta give David Wesley kudos, Lee Nalon, all the guards on that Hornets team that had to deal with Jordan that game. There was nothing they were gonna do about it that night. Jordan was giving them buckets, and he was about to turn 39 in just a few weeks. For a while, it was the record for the oldest player to drop 50 in a game. And that record stood for 18 long seasons until my number 2 pick stole the show. And at number 2, I got Jamal Crawford. Jay Crossover, one of the best professional scorers of all time with one of the greatest handles ever. He was literally an ageless wonder. Take a minute, go look at a picture of him when he first entered the league, then look at a picture in his last season. The guy hasn't aged a bit. He looks the same! He looks the same! For context, Jamal averaged 14.6 points per game for his career and 7.9 during the 2018-19 season. But in the last game of that season for the Phoenix Suns, Jamal spoiled Dirk's final home game by dropping 51 points on the Mavs. The 51 points not only made him the oldest player to drop 50 plus in a game, shattering MJ's record, but it also gave him the record for the most 50-point games on different teams. 4. And wait, I'm not done. It became the most points scored off the bench in league history. 51 points in an NBA game when he was averaging barely 8 points for the season, and he did it all at 39 years and 20 days old. And my number 1 pick's gotta be the Mamba, Kobe Bryant. I don't need to say anything about Kobe's career, you know it all, I'm not even gonna start. And by the way, most of you were probably watching the game I'm about to mention. But in Kobe's last game in 2016, Mamba went out in true Mamba form. Not 50, not 55, but 60 points in his last and final game. The 37-year-old Bryant gave Utah the business. Doesn't matter who you threw at him, they were getting some. Of course, haters are gonna say it took Kobe 50 shots to get to 60 points, but still, at age 37, after a Hall of Fame career, 20 years later in his last and final game, to get 60? Give the guy a break. To make it even sweeter, Shaq hit Kobe with a challenge before the game. He said, go out there and get me 50. Well, in true Mamba fashion, he topped that one, and it's tied for the 5th highest scoring game of his career. So that's it. That's my top 5. Which old man performance did I miss? Will LeBron work his way up the list? Maybe Steph Curry in a couple of years? Who knows? All I know is let me know in the comments what you think. My name is Brad Parker, and that's my top 5.